Ladies and gentlemen, we've got chapter 8A. We got factor by grouping. We're going to use these little grouping techniques as we factor polynomials when we have 4 or more terms. We're going to try to keep this as basic as possible. For you guys to understand how to factor by grouping, let's go on the back here, and I'm just going to work on how to FOIL. Okay? So back in the last chapter, chapter 8A we called it, we talked about FOILing. And FOILing stands for first, outers, inners, last, right? So I'm just going to take a basic binomial, x plus 2, and talk about multiplying it to another binomial, x plus 5. So far, so good? Yeah. Well, when we take this x and we multiply the first term, and we take that x and multiply it to the outside term, we do F and O of FOIL, we're essentially taking that x and distributing it to this guy, right? You guys agree with that? So when you do your first term and your outside terms of F and O, that's what that's doing, right? And the distributive property says that's x times x is x squared, and x times 5 is 5x. So far, so good? Yeah. Okay, put down, please. Put down. Yes, nicely. Now I'm going to take my 2. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 2 to my inside terms in the last term. That's the I and the L of FOIL. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking this plus 2 times x plus 5. You guys agree with that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times 5 was 10. And then we simplified and we got our x squared plus 7x plus 10, right? Well, that was chapter 8A. That's how we FOIL. Well, now we're going to do chapter 8B, which we're factoring. Okay? And essentially we're going in the opposite order. You're going to have this x squared plus 5x, and you're going to have this 2x plus 10, and we want to factor that polynomial with 4 terms. So what we do is we group. Yeah, I can zoom out. So what we're going to do when we're doing factoring using the grouping method, we're going to group our terms together. So we're going to group the first 2 terms. I'm going to cover these guys up. I'm going to group those 2 together and say, hey, what's the GCF here? What do they have in common? X squared plus 5x, what's the GCF? Take out an x, I can take an x out. And when I take out an x from x squared plus 5x, what do you have left on the inside? What happens when you take an x away from x squared, Ryan? You get x, and what happens when you take away an x from 5x? Yes, sir. You just have 5. So we group the first 2, and we take out the GCF, and then we cover up, and we group the next 2, and we take out the GCF. So what does 2x plus 10 have in common? What can you take out there? Tyler? What are they both divisible by? I can take a 2 out. Positive, right? So I'm going to put plus 2. What happens when you take 2x and divide out a 2? What are you left with? Take 2 away from the 2x is just x. Take 2 away from 10, divide it out, and that's 5. Right? You guys okay with that? So we grouped the first 2 terms. We took out an x. We got x plus 5. We get the next 2 terms. We took out a 2. And by rule, because these guys are the same quantities, then the numbers in front can be written together as a binomial, as x plus 2. And then we write this x plus 5 one time. And the reason why we can do that is because of how FOIL works. When you take a binomial times a binomial, you're taking x times x plus 5, you can rewrite it like this. And when you're taking your inners and lasts, you're taking 2 times that, we can write like this. We're essentially going in reverse order when you're factoring. Does that make sense? Kind of. All you're doing is you're doing FOIL, but in reverse order. So, big idea, you group the first two, you take out the GCF. You group the next two, you take out the GCF. These quantities should be the same, so then we can write these two together as a binomial. And then we write those quantities that are the same one time. And we can do that because that's how FOIL works. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. All right, so let's put into action. We'll do a few examples here. Let's start us off with an easy one here. All right, so I guess we'll start off with number 1. Here we go. So I have 10m squared n minus 25mn plus 6m minus 15. So again, we're factor by grouping, so we're going to go ahead and cover up those last two and group these two. And we're going to take out the GCF. What do they have in common? So as I take a look, 10m squared n minus 25mn. What's the numbers and what's the variables? JP. What's the numbers?
5.
Yeah, I can take a 5 out. Now look at the m's now. I got m squared and m. How many m's can I take out? 1m, so m. And then I have an n and an n. So I can take out those n's. So my GCF there is 5mn. Any questions on why that is the GCF there? Are we okay? All right, now I should have a binomial now inside. What's 10 divided by 5? 2. M squared, I took an m away, so now I just have an m. And then I took that n and divided it out. That's already outside. So I have 2m. That's an m. Let me make it double hump so it's really tough. That's 2m. So far, so good. Then I took out 5mn from negative 25mn. What's negative 25 divided by 5? Damien. Yes, sir. And we divided out those m and n's, so those are done. So I'm like halfway done. So far, so good. Any questions? So I grouped the first two and I factor out the GCF. Now I group the second two and factor out a GCF. 6m minus 15. What can I take out? Jet. 3. Positive or negative?
Positive.
Yes, sir. So put a little plus there with that 3. Okay. So I took a 3 out, and now I want to show what's left. I should have a binomial. And if you're not sure, look at the binomial that you have right here. Should be the same thing. What's 6m divided by 3? 2m. And what's negative 15 divided by 3? Negative 5. Boom. Now I look to see what I got. These guys are the same, aren't they? Right? So by rule, on how FOIL works, then I can take the numbers in front and put them together in one binomial. So I can put 5mn plus 3 together. And then I can write 2m minus 5 one time. And there you go. Now, if I want to check my work, I could always FOIL this out and make sure that I got this. If I take 5mn times 2m, I get that. If I take 5mn times negative 5, I get this. If I take 3 times 2m, I get 6m, and if I take 3 times negative 5, I get negative 15. So it works out perfect. Yes, sir.
For 2m, minus 5, wouldn't that be squared?
It's a good question. Because these are the same, how FOIL works, it says, well, I can write these one time, and I write this quantity one time with how FOIL works. Because how FOIL works is I'm taking this guy times this one, and this one times this one. So that's kind of what's going on right here. So you only want to write the quantity that you see exactly the same one time. And that's how factor by grouping works. Good question. Yes? Bathroom. Missing the good stuff, though. Any other questions on this example? All right. So let's giddy up. Let's take a look at the next one. Number 2. I've got 72a squared b plus 56ab plus 45a plus 35. Okay. Again, I see I have 4 terms. I look to factor by grouping here. Okay. So I take a look. 72 and 56. What are those divisible by? 72 and 56. What can I divide out? Damien, you got to divide. 8. 72 divided by 8 is 9. What's 56 divided by 8? What is that, 7? Yeah, perfect. Let's take it out in 8. All right. A squared A, what do they have in common? A squared and A, how much can I take out? An A. A. B and a B, I can take that B away. Perfect. All right, now I should have a binomial here. Yes?
If you take out both B's, why can't you have that as like B squared?
Well, you're taking one, they have one B in common, so you can only take one away from them. Right? If they only have one, if you only have one candy bar, I can only take one away. If you only have one B, I can only take one away. I can't take 2 away if there's only one from each person. So if you and Rylan both have candy bars, I'm taking your Snicker bars from you. Right? And divide it up. All right. So I take out a B. Divide it out. So 72 A squared B. That gives me 9 A left on the inside. Right? 72 divided by 8 is 9. A squared, I divided out an A. There we go. 56 divided by 8 we said was 7. And we divided out an A and a B. So it's just 9A plus 7. So far, so good? All right, then I group the next 2. I got 45A plus 35. What do they have in common? What can I divide out? Cool. 45A and 35. Take a 5 out. Plus 5. So always have like a symbol. Is that plus 5 or minus 5? You said 5, so I'm going to put a plus in front of it. Okay? And now that leaves me with what? What's 45A divided by 5, y'all? 9? A. And then 35 divided by 5, isn't that 7? And that's what we want, right? We want these 2 quantities. When you factor out, we want these 2 to be the same. Once we know they're the same, then these guys here in front, put them together. They're teamed up. We have 8AB and then plus 5. And because these are written twice, we're going to write it one time because that's how FOIL works. If I was to FOIL, I would take 8AB times both of these guys, that's represented here. I would take 5 times both of these guys, that's represented here. So that's why we write it one time. Great thing, I can always check my work by taking and FOILing back to make sure I get with what I started with. If I take 8AB times 9AB, I get 72A squared B. If I take 8AB times 7, I get 56AB. If I take 5 times 9A, that's 45A, and 5 times 7 is 35. So I just double checked with FOIL. Remember, FOIL and factoring is just going in reverse order. Okay. You guys have any questions with that? You guys okay? All right. 3 or 4, which one do you guys want to do? Which one? 3? Okay. So as I take a look at 3, this will be a good one to talk about. I'm not going to change. You can always change orders of your terms. Okay, you don't have to. So as I take a look, I got 20AB minus 35B. What are they both divisible by? What can I factor out? A 5. And this guy has an A, but this one doesn't, so I can't take that away from both of them. Or divide it out. But this has a B, and so does that guy, so I can take out a 5B. All right, what's 20AB divided by 5B? What's left? 4A, very good. And the negative 35B divided by 5B is just negative 7. Very good. Perfect. I group these next two. All right, I got negative 63 plus 36. Okay. What are they divisible by? What can I take out? I take a 9 out. Take a 9, so plus 9 you say. So that gives me a negative 7. And 36A divided by 9 is positive 4A. Now I look at these two. Man, they look pretty darn close, don't they? Are they the same? But pretty darn close. That's 4A minus 7. This is minus 7 plus 4A. What's wrong with them? They're just flip-flop, right? They're just transposed. Is it okay if I rewrite it like this? 4A minus 7. Just change the order. Is that okay? There's nothing wrong with that. That's like moving these two guys around. So it's 36A minus 63. Just changing the order of them. That's okay. You can do that. Okay. So all we did is rewrote this guy. And let me rewrite the other one right below it. You don't have to. So sometimes when you do it, you get what you want, but you're off a little bit. That's okay. Go ahead and put these guys together. We get 5B plus 9. Write that as 1. And then write this 4A minus 7 as 1. Do not write as a quantity squared. You'll lose a little bit of points here. So final answer, 5B plus 9, 4A minus 7. Any questions here? All right. I know it's almost time to go, but I do want to talk about this last one here, just so we can see it. Okay. As we take a look at factoring this guy, I'll just walk through it real fast. I take a look, and I see that they only have an x in common. So I'm going to take out an x, and that leaves me with 3x squared and then plus 2y. So x cubed, I took an x away, divided it out, and it leaves me with an x squared, and I took that x, it's gone. So now I'm going to group these two. And the most common thing, I said, what's the GCF? Most of you guys will say 5. So when you take out a 5, the problem is you're going to be left with a negative 3x squared and a negative 2y. So you almost have what you want, but the symbols are wrong. So when you go back, instead of taking out a plus 5, you should have took out a negative 5. So now you can factor out that negative, and that's going to give you that 3x squared plus 2y. And now you'll see that these two guys are the same. And now you can take these two and write x minus 5 together as 1. And 3x squared plus 2y 1 time. Okay, so you guys saw 5 examples of this. Okay.